Greetings, my name is Jason, and I'd like to take a few seconds to talk about business ethics and how it relates to a particular company. Business ethics is really nothing more than the behaviors that drives our decision making on a daily basis. And honestly, a corporation is no different in the sense that the actual corporation is inanimate. It's not alive, so it takes on the personality, persona, and behaviors of those who run it. One such company that, and as long as there's big business and corporations, there's going to be some companies that are performing unethical decisions, making poor choices, and just basically not doing the right thing, whether it's a social, whether it's an environmental, or whether it's just business in general. There's always going to be ethical issues, and HSBC is the organization that I chose to look at. Not so much because of the organization itself, but I thought the uniqueness of this particular ethical issues were I thought they were kind of unique and a little different than the old just taking money out of the employees retirement funds and things like that, like Enron in the past. Excuse me. Back in 2012, they were investigated, and it was discovered that they were. Everything I read said that they were laundering money, but I think it was more of the fact that they had a very poor checks and balances system to prevent this. And in post 9/11, this was an important part of the new era of banking, because they're on the forefront and the front lines of all these business transactions, and they can see on a daily basis what's going on. So they were given the okay, actually not they were given the it was made mandatory that they were supposed to report any unusual suspicious activities, as per Patriot Law and various other programs that were given, that were created post 9/11. And, this is one thing that HSBC had failed to do. In fact, prior to this, they had been investigated, and at some point prior to this, and they were investigated, and it was found that they were absolutely lacking in this department and were told to clean it up, streamline it, and they failed to do so. And basically what they did was, any point in time that an employee would go to the anti-money laundering and fraud department and say, "Excuse me, I think person X here might have issues, he's moving a lot of money around, he's got ties to terrorist harboring countries," it would just get swept under the rug. And in fact, it got to the point that they were in turn letting some of these employees go, and some of these employees were prominent, very successful with the organization, and had important roles in the branch or department that they served. It was at that point that it became apparent that there was a definite issue with this, and it sort of started to look as if there was more than just not having interest in checking for this money laundering and make sure it doesn't happen, but it started to look like a cover-up, and that was a big problem. So what they can't fire people because technically you're allowed to whistleblow without fear of retribution for your position. So basically, what they did was they would nail these people for sexual harassment, things of that nature. They would get, they would get a girl to a female worker to play along, and at that point, there's not much you can do. It's really just he said, she said. And it wasn't until that point that it truly became a ethical dilemma. You lose your job because you're whistleblowing because you see stuff going on that shouldn't be going on, and you lose your. There's a cover up, and this was became really what I would say is a unique ethical dilemma, and it was one for the ages. They were fined an incredulous $1.9 billion in exchange for the case to be dropped. In turn, I think they got away pretty lightly. Could have been a lot worse for HSBC. In fact, there's a whistleblower came out in 2015 and had mentioned that they were not, from people he had talked to that were still with the company, the employees who were involved in all this stuff, these cover-ups, were still employed, and some of these questionable accounts that should have been closed as per laws and federal programs were still open. So in his mind, he believed that whistleblowing, in his mind that the money laundering was still going on and still not a big concern to HSBC. Thank you.